All right, what's going on, everybody? It's Fast Cars, Fast Money. We're finally back with getting some content out. It's been a little bit of a hectic, chaotic last handful of weeks with being in the hospital and surgery and recovering from all that stuff, hence the different background and really not being able to get many videos out recently. But day by day, we're getting better and starting to get back to normal. So hopefully we'll get back to just normal content here, sooner rather than later. But how can you help us? You can like, comment, share, retweet. It allows us to reach more people. Slowly but surely, we're getting up to 1,000 subscribers. I think we're just shy of 900. If you want access to the spreadsheet, maybe last second lineup adjustments, you want to ask us questions, you can go over on X. It's at FastCarsFM. And finally, hey, if you appreciate what we do, had a good weekend, just want to say thanks. There's a couple links here in the support tab for a PayPal and Venmo. Get into the race preview and strategy. So we're at Pocono. Pocono is a pretty unique track. There's not really another track on the circuit that you can look at for comparison. But what we typically do is just look at those intermediate tracks. So it's pretty big. It's 2.5 miles in length. Because of that, it's only 160 laps. So with 160 laps, the focus on dominators really isn't as high as maybe some other weekends. Um, and it's also a big track where you, depending on how far you are behind the leader, you can pit, service your car, get tires, fuel, go back on the track, and not even lose a lap. So because of that, we usually get pretty different strategies. There's fuel mileage that comes into the equation. When people are pitting, so we usually see a little bit of a mix of who's actually that lap leader, just because we have so many different teams on different strategies. So getting the main lap leader in your line is important, but at this type of racetrack, those points really get spread out, across a variety of different drivers. When we talk about Pocono, we always talk about weather. Even if the forecast looks good, weather always seems to pop up here. That's always a concern. There's no lights at the track either, so you're kind of racing against darkness to a certain extent. So fingers crossed we can get the full race in. What am I looking at? Really looking at the 2024 intermediate track data this year. You can also just jump into practice and qualifying this weekend, just kind of seeing how teams are unloading. So, and getting to the slate, you got Hamlin, Larson, Bell, Truex, and Byron. I'm going to throw Reddick in that equation as well. I really like all these guys, but if I had to pick, I'm probably going to lean on the Toyotas. So I really like Hamlin, I really like Truex, and I really like Reddick. Those are the three drivers I would say are, who I'm building around. I'm probably going to have at least one, if not two of those drivers in all of my lines. Hamlin has the best track history here. He's won here 7 times. He won here, as recently of last year. His practice times weren't as strong as some of the others, but he did show up for qualifying when it mattered. And if you look at the intermediate track data, Hamlin and Larson, rank at the top. So there's a lot to like with Denny Hamlin. Obviously, DraftKings like them because they priced them up as the most expensive. Now, Larson gives you place differential upside with lap leading upside. So that's a really, nice combination where Hamlin, you don't really get that lap leading upside, whereas Larson, or that place differential upside, whereas Larson, you do get the place differential upside. So, when you think of intermediate tracks, you think of Hamlin and Larson. So there's a lot to like with Larson. He did spin the car in practice. Luckily enough for him, he didn't hit anything. He did miss out on the second round of qualifying, but it's Kyle Larson. I imagine he's going to be up there contending, for the race win. But just me personally, I'm going to lean heavier on the Toyotas. So I'm going to have more ownership to Hamlin. I'm going to have more ownership to Truex. I'm going to have more ownership to Reddick. But I'm still going to get to Byron, and Larson. Christopher Bell starts 13th. He's kind of like Kyle Larson with some place differential upside with the lap leading ability. I kind of prefer Larson here just based off of the intermediate track data and the times in practice and qualifying this weekend. Bell's been really good as of late though, so he does have a lot of momentum on his side. I don't know how many people are going to play Bell, so he might be kind of the odd man out up here. Maybe Byron as well. Truex looks like he has the car to beat this weekend. He was the best car in practice, fastest across the 5 lap, the 10 lap, and the 15 lap average. Historically, though, he hasn't been as good as Larson and Hamlin on these intermediate tracks. But if you're just looking at how the teams are unloading and who's going to be fast this weekend, everyone's talking about that 19 car. So a lot of speed there. This could be a great weekend for Truex to go out there and lead a bunch of laps. Byron starts second. He's struggled as of late, really hasn't had the speed. Um, they're starting on the front row. His car was second quickest, however, in practice behind Truex. Looking at the lap averages, could be a really good bounce back week for him. Just barely missed out on the pole. He's more expensive than Gibbs, but there's a good chance he could go ahead and be that lap leader. And then you have Reddick. Reddick hasn't been as dominant as Hamlin and Larson on the intermediate tracks, but he's been very, very impressive. He's been very consistent, getting good finishes, clocking out fast laps, running towards the front of the field. He's also pretty quick in practice this weekend. He was top three in the 1, 5, and 10 lap average. So I really like those Toyotas. So if I can try to get Reddick, Truex, and Hamlin in my lines, some combination of those drivers, those are the builds I'm kind of leaning towards as far as my lap leaders, my dominators go. And then once you get below there, Elliott and Blaney, they're okay. Elliott, I think is going to have a good, NASCAR points day. I just don't know DFS wise if it's going to work out. Starting 11th, we just haven't seen him be as dominant. We don't see him up front leading laps. We don't really see him clocking off fast laps. So you could start 11th and finish 8th or 7th, which is a great day. But if he's not able to give us, more place differential upside or dominator upside, you're kind of paying up, for a relatively mediocre DFS day. Ryan Blaney, I'm just really not getting to. Wasn't really that good in practice. He's still in the player pool. I think we'll have lower ownership, but I'd rather just get some of the other plays in the 9K range. Now, Gibbs starts on the pole. He gets to control this race. The issue with Gibbs is he has Martin Truex, William Byron, and Denny Hamlin, right behind him. So I would much rather play Byron, Hamlin, Truex over Gibbs. The advantage that Gibbs has is he's a lot cheaper and he's a lot easier to get into your line. So I wouldn't be shocked if Gibbs goes out there and leads, stage one. But like I said, with all the different race strategies, how this race just plays out with 160 laps, you don't really need a lot of emphasis on dominator points. And I think Ty Gibbs could lead a good chunk of laps. I just don't know, what if he falls back and finishes 9th or 10th or 11th or something like that? It's not going to be necessarily the best day. Keselowski, can kind of go either way. He's been running pretty good at the intermediate tracks. Not really a ton of speed this weekend. I think he can contend for a top 10. So maybe if you're just trying to take a risk for GPPs, you can go there. Logano's another play like Blaney. I'm just really not getting to. I'm not really too high on any of the Penske guys. Actually, of all the Penske guys, I'd rather probably play Cindric. Chastain usually runs pretty good here. The issue with Chastain is he shows good speed during the race, and then once you get to the end of the race, he just hasn't been able to get the finishes. But when we look at the intermediate tracks, that's usually where this team shows up. So, like the price tag, I like the place differential upside. I'll have a decent amount of Ross Chastain today. Kyle Busch has just been absolutely awful. The worst luck of anyone I've seen in a long time. They already had some steering issues this weekend. I will say that this team has been a lot better on the intermediate tracks versus like the short tracks or the road courses. He starts 24th. If there's ever a bounce back week, maybe this is it. But we've been saying that for a little bit now. So, but I think he's been doing so bad. So I think his ownership will still be, relatively low. So I'm not afraid to go to Kyle Busch. He'll bounce back one of these weekends and you want to be on him the week that happens. Busher starts 18th. I'd probably, rope him in with Keselowski, probably a top 10 contender. Keselowski's run a little bit better on the intermediate tracks and also was a little bit quicker this weekend. So probably would lean on Keselowski, but you get an $800 discount of going to Busher. Bowman got that win last weekend, so that was a huge weight lifted off his shoulders. He starts sixth, which is going to be tough to pay off, but he is a pretty fast car. I mean, he put down a really, really fast time to get into the second round of qualifying. Still a relatively fast time in the second round of qualifying, not as quick, but I can see him running around sixth, eighth, all day long, depending on how this race plays out at the end. Maybe he can get a top 4, top 3 finish. It's going to be difficult with some of the other cars in the field, but this car has speed. So I wish he started a little bit further back, but more of an aggressive GPP play. Bubba Wallace is going to be extremely popular. He starts 29th. He practiced much better than where he qualified. So it looks like a really good place differential upside play for only $7,600. Really easy to get into your lines. Suarez is another driver I think you can kind of take a risk on. I wish he started a little further back, but he had good speed. Most likely he's going to contend for top 12, top 10 today. His practice times were just inside the top 10, so that's encouraging. The discouraging thing about him um, is, his average finish on these intermediate tracks is a lot closer to where he starts, kind of like 16th to 18th. So has speed this weekend. So again, maybe a driver you take a little bit of a risk on. Then these SHR cars, I don't really know what to do with. You got Gregson and Briscoe there. I think they're going to draw ownership. My fear is they're just slow. They qualified here on speed, 25th, 28th. Maybe we see some chaos, some drivers wreck out. Maybe they're able to make some adjustments, but if not, I can just see them running in the 20s all day long. Josh Berry, somehow was able to start fifth. I don't know how that team turned it around for qualifying, but his practice times were much worse than that. Um, so I'm not really too interested in any of those SHR cars. Probably would lean on Gregson and Briscoe just for the place differential safety. But I'd rather play Eric Jones or Michael McDowell. I don't think they're going to get talked about as much. I think their ownership's going to come in much less. They start relatively around the same range. They're cheaper, and their practice times were, either similar or a lot better than those SHR cars. So I'm not afraid to pivot and get to Jones and McDowell today. I think those are some good tournament options. Todd Gilliland's going to be very popular, just like Bubba Wallace. He's had really good momentum as of late, kind of the opposite of Kyle Busch, just being able to string together solid finish after solid finish. Didn't really have the best car in practice, but he starts so deep that it doesn't really matter. And he's so cheap as well. It's really easy for him to pay off that price tag. Cindric's another guy I'm going to throw in with Jones and McDowell. Another guy I'm going to be high on for GPPs. I have him as medium interest there, but I'm going to probably be over the field ownership wise for tournaments. I showed pretty good encouraging times for practice, and he's only $6,600, starts right mid pack in 20th. That's typically where we see this two-car run, but the speed there is encouraging, so I'm not afraid to go there. Now, Stenhouse has been really good at Pocono, usually finishes inside the top 20. That will really be a good day for him starting 31st. So I like him and Gillen. Those are kind of the safe place differential value options. Not really getting the Hocevar today. He starts a little bit too high. AJ Allmendinger starts 26. My fear with AJ is just is going to run in the 20s, and he's not really going to score you a lot of points. Then you get to Haley and Priest. So I kind of like Haley over Priest. I would imagine both of them, again, were not good in practice. Their practice times were in the 30s, and then they qualified in the 30s. So again, it's kind of just reiterating that these cars are slow. But they do start so deep in the field. As long as they finish the race, it's pretty easy for them to move forward. We know there's going to be cars in the field that have incidents, issues, wreck, DNF, whatever it might be. Haley's been really good speed wise this year, but they just didn't unload well. It doesn't really look like they have the speed this weekend. And then again, all those SHR cars have just been terrible. And I think Ryan Preece is going to draw a lot of ownership. So a little hesitant there. Not really getting Austin Dillon, starts too high. Really cool to see Zane Smith make the second round of qualifying, but he starts too high. And then once you get below there, John Hunter, Nemechek, Corey LaJoy, Daniel Hemrick, Harrison Burton, Cody Ware, JJ Yaley. I don't really think you need to come this low on the slate personally, just the way that I'm building. Not really a ton of upside here. If you're going to play one driver, probably LaJoy based off of practice times, or maybe you just go all the way to the bottom there and just play Cody Ware starting 35th. But again, these drivers aren't really going to project well. The only reason you're playing them is to stack those plays up top. But with Pocono only being 160 laps and there's not really that much of an emphasis on dominator points, I don't really think you need to go that low today. So for me, it's really building around those Toyotas. Like I said, I really like Truex, I really like Hamlin, I really like Reddick. I like the place differential plays of Wallace, Gilliland, Stenhouse, some pivot options with Jones, McDowell, Cindric, like Chastain. I'm not afraid of Kyle Busch today. Those are the types of lines that I'm building. So usually, 2 to 3 drivers in the, 11, 10, 9K range, and then kind of just seeing where the rest of those lines, fall. So that'll do it for the Pocono race weekend. Feels good to finally get a video back out there to everybody. So appreciate everyone's patience. But good luck today with the race, and we'll catch you next weekend.